Hare Krishna everyone, so we're continuing to read The Path of Perfection by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host Sulalita Devidasi, and let us dive into the 9th chapter of the book entitled Destination After Death. Thus, by vibrating Om and leaving the material body, thinking of the Supreme Lord, the yogi is transferred to the spiritual world. Those who are not personalists, however, cannot enter into the spiritual planet of Lord Krishna. They remain outside in the Brahma Jyoti effulgence. Just as the sunshine is not different from the sun globe, the Brahma Jyoti effulgence of the Lord is not different from the Supreme Lord. The impersonalists are placed in that Brahma Jyoti as minute particles. We are all spiritual sparks, and the Brahma Jyoti is full of these spiritual sparks. In this way, the impersonalists merge into the spiritual existence. However, individuality is retained because the spirit soul is constitutionally an individual. Because the impersonalists don't want a personal form, they are placed and held in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. There, they exist just as atoms exist within the sunshine. The individual spiritual spark remains within the Brahma Jyoti as if homogeneous. As living entities, we all want enjoyment. We do not simply want existence. We are constitutionally Sat Chit Ananda, eternal Sat, full of knowledge, Chit, and full of bliss, Ananda. Those who enter the impersonal Brahma Jyoti cannot remain there eternally with the knowledge that now I am merged, I am now one with Brahman. Although there is eternality and knowledge, bliss, Ananda, is lacking. Who can remain alone in a room year after year, reading some book and trying to enjoy himself? We cannot remain alone forever. Eventually we will leave that room and look for some association. It is our nature to want some recreation with others. The impersonalists, dissatisfied with the loneliness of their position in the impersonal effulgence of the Lord, therefore return again to this material world. This is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Yenyera vindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhavad avishudha buddhaya aruhya krichrena param padam tatah patantyandho nadrita yushmad angrayah. Quote, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. Unquote. The impersonalists are like astronauts in search of a planet. If they cannot rest in some planet, they have to return to earth. It is herein stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Anadrita Yushmad Angrayaha, that the impersonalist must return to the material world because he has neglected to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. As long as we are on this earth, we should practice to love and serve Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Then we can enter his spiritual planet. If we are not trained up in this way, we can enter the Brahma Jyoti as an impersonalist But there is every risk that we will fall down again into the material existence. Out of loneliness, we will search out some association and therefore return to this material world. What we actually want is the eternal association of the Supreme Lord. This is our constitutional position of eternality, knowledge, and pleasure. If we are alone, if we do not associate with the Supreme Lord, that pleasure is lacking. For want of pleasure, we feel uncomfortable. For want of pleasure, we will accept any kind of association, any kind of pleasure. Wow, this is such a powerful point. Right? Like people, you can say out of loneliness. Right? Many times people go down a wrong path in life when they just can't find people to relate to. People, out of loneliness, basically, that they find somebody, even if it's a very bad association, they just consider that better I be with someone like who understands me, with whom I can have a relationship, rather than being with somebody, in quotes, good, but like we can't even have a relationship because we don't have anything in common. So this is very interesting, and this is there because we are lacking that eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, out of a kind of desperation, we will say, all right, then let me have material pleasure again. That is the risk of impersonalists, the risk that the impersonalists take. Right, so impersonalists, they are seeking to merge into the light of Brahman. But then, as they merge, they can't remain there forever lonely in that pure light. There is eternality, there is knowledge, but there is no ananda, pleasure. And we are by nature, pleasure seeking. So, out of desperation, the impersonalists might say, okay, let me go back to have at least material pleasure. Right, so, in the material world, the highest pleasures found in sex. This is but a perverted reflection of the pleasure experienced with Krishna in the spiritual world. Unless there is sex present in the spiritual world, it cannot be reflected here. However, we should understand that here the reflection is perverted. Actual life is there in Krishna. Krishna is full of pleasure, and if we train ourselves to serve him in Krishna consciousness, it will be possible at the time of death to transfer ourselves to the spiritual world and enter into Krishna Loka, Krishna's planet, and enjoy ourselves in the association of Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's planet is described in Brahma Samhita 5.29 in this way. Chintamani prakarasadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabira bipalayantam Lakshmi sahasrashata sambrama sevyamanam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Quote, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the Surabhi cows that fulfill all desires, who is surrounded by millions of purpose wish-fulfilling trees, and abodes built with spiritual gems, and who is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Unquote. In this way, Krishna Loka is described. There the houses are made of touchstone, Chintamani. If a small particle of touchstone touches an iron rod, that rod will immediately turn to gold. Of course, In this material world, we have no experience with such a thing as touchstone. But, according to Brahma Samhita, all the abodes in Krishna Loka are composed of touchstone. Similarly, the trees there are called desire trees, kalpa vriksha, because one can get whatever he desires from them. Here we can get only mangoes from a mango tree, but in Krishna Loka we can get whatever we desire from any tree, because the trees are kalpa vriksha. This is just a partial description of Krishna Loka, Krishna's eternal abode in the spiritual sky. The conclusion, therefore, is not to try to elevate ourselves to any material planet, because the same material conditions of birth, old age, disease, and death exist in all of them. Scientists are very proud of scientific advancement, but they have not been able to check old age, disease, and death. They can manufacture something to accelerate death, but nothing that can stop death. That is not within their power. Those who are intelligent are interested in putting an end to birth, old age, disease, and death, and entering into a spiritual life full of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. The Bhakti yogi knows that such a life is possible through practice of Krishna consciousness and remembrance of Krishna at the time of death. Jai. Ananyachetah satatam yomam smarati nityashah tasyaham sulabah partha nitya yuktasya yoginah. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Bhagavad Gita 8.14. In this verse, the word Nitya Yukta means continuously in trance. Such a person who is continuously thinking of Krishna and always engaged in Krishna consciousness is the highest yogi. His attention is not diverted to Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or any other system. For him, there is only one system, Krishna. Ananya Chetah means without deviation. A Krishna conscious devotee is not disturbed by anything because his mind is always concentrated on Krishna. The word satatam means that he is thinking of Krishna at all places and at all times. When Krishna descended onto this earth, he appeared in Vrindavan. Although I am presently living in America, my residence is in Vrindavan because I am always thinking of Krishna. Although I may be in a New York apartment, my consciousness is there, and this is as good as being there. Haribol! I really love this. So, a Krishna conscious devotee is not disturbed by anything. Nothing disturbs him, because his mind is always concentrated on Krishna. Haribol. So, Krishna consciousness means always living with Krishna in his spiritual planet. Because we are conscious of Krishna, we are already living with him. We simply have to wait to give up this material body to go there. For one who remembers Krishna without deviation, he is easy to obtain. Tasyaham sulabah partham. Bhagavad Gita 8.14. Quote, I become very cheap for them. Unquote. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness, the most valuable thing becomes very easy to obtain. Because one is engaged in bhakti yoga, Krishna becomes easily available. Why should we try so hard to attain Krishna when Krishna himself says, I am easy to obtain? We have only to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 24 hours daily. There is no fast rule and regulation. We can chant in the street or in the subway, in our home or in our office. There is neither expenditure nor tax. Actually, Krishna, being omnipotent, is unconquerable. But it is said that he is not only obtained but conquered through pure devotional service. As stated before, it is generally very difficult to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one of his names is Ajita, meaning he whom no one can conquer. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.3, Lord Brahma prays to Ajita. Gyane prayasamupa udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam stane sthitam shrutigatam tanuvan manobir ye prayaso jitajito pyasitais trilokyam. Quote, O my dear Lord Ajita, those devotees who have thrown away the impersonal conceptions of the absolute truth and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophical truths should hear from self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities. They should completely follow the principles of devotional service and remain free from illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and animal slaughter. Surrendering themselves fully with body, words, and mind, they can live in any ashrama or social status. Indeed, you are conquered by such persons, although you are always unconquerable. In this verse, the words Gyane Prayasam refer to theosophists and philosophers who are trying year after year and life after life to understand God or the absolute truth. Their attempts are like those of a frog in a well trying to comprehend the vastness of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Even our attempts to measure outer space are futile, to say nothing of the attempt to measure God. Such attempts are doomed to failure. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam recommends that we abandon all attempts to measure the Supreme. It is completely useless to try to understand God by our limited knowledge, and an intelligent man understands this. We should become submissive and try to understand that our position is that of a very insignificant segment in this creation. In this creation. The words namanta eva indicate that we are just to become submissive in order to understand the Supreme from a reliable source. And what is that source? Sanmukharitam, from the lips of realized souls. Arjuna is understanding God directly from the lips of Krishna, and we have to understand God through the lips of Arjuna, or his bona fide representative. We can understand the transcendental nature of God only from a reliable source. That source may be Indian, European, American, Japanese, Hindu, Muslim, or whatever. The circumstances are not important. We just have to try to understand by hearing and then try to put the process to practice in our daily lives. By becoming submissive, hearing from the right source, and trying to apply the teachings in our daily lives, we can become conquerors of the Supreme. For one who does this, Krishna becomes so easily available. Lord Krishna. So, ordinarily, Yes, ordinarily God realization is very difficult, but it is very easy for one who submissively hears. Shruti Gatam. There are two processes by which we can acquire knowledge. One is the ascending process, Aroha Pantha, and the other is descending process, Avaroha Pantha. By the ascending process, one attempts to understand God by his own efforts, by philosophizing, meditating, or speculating. According to the descending process, one acquires knowledge simply by hearing from an authority, from the bona fide spiritual master, and the scriptures. As far as the ascending process is concerned, it is stated in Brahma Samhita 5.34, Pantastukoti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manaso muni pungavannam sopyastiyat prapadasimya vichintya tattve govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Quote, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tips of the toes of whose lotus feet are approached by the yogis and gyanis who travel for billions of years at the speed of the wind or mind. Wow, unquote. We can all understand how great the speed of mind is. Although sitting in New York City, I can immediately think of India, which is thousands and thousands of miles away. It is herein stated that even if one travels at this speed for billions of years, that's a lot actually, if you really put your thought into it. Traveling at the speed of mind for billions of years, Krishna will still remain inconceivable. The word Muni Pungavanam refers to a great thinker, not an ordinary man. Even if such a great thinker travels for millions of years at the speed of light, he will still find the Supreme Person unknowable. Yet for one who takes undeviatingly to this path of Krishna consciousness, Krishna is easy to obtain. Why is this? Nitya yuktasya yoginah. Because such a person is constantly engaged in my devotional service, and I cannot forget him. Unquote. So, this is the process. We have only to become submissive to attract the attention of the Lord. My Guru Maharaj used to say, don't try to see God, but work in such a way that God will see you. God will take care of you. You don't have to try to see Him. This should be our attitude. We should not think, I want to see God. Oh God, please come and stand before me. Be like my servant. Unquote. But since God is no one's servant, we have to oblige Him by our love and service. We all know how difficult it is to see the king or president of a country. It is practically impossible for an ordinary man to get an interview with such an important person, to say nothing of having this important person come and stand before him. Yet people are demanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead come and stand before them. It is our nature to hanker after Krishna, because he is the most attractive, most beautiful, most opulent, most powerful, most learned, and most famous person in the universe. Everyone hankers after these qualities, and Krishna is the reservoir of all these qualities, and he possesses them in full. Krishna is the reservoir of everything. Rasa Vaisaha, Therefore, when we hanker after beauty or power or knowledge or fame, we should just turn our attention to Krishna. Then we will automatically get whatever our hearts desire. Haribo! So, we have completed. I'm sorry for beating the book over the mic. I hope it didn't. Okay, I'll try to be careful next time while setting up. So, we will continue tomorrow. We have completed chapter 9, and tomorrow we shall read chapter 10, the last chapter of the book, entitled The Path of Perfection. So thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description, and we shall see you next time. Hare Krishna.